Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into one of the most iconic, intensely emotional sporting arenas anywhere in the world, Celtic Park. We're going to trace its absolutely incredible journey, starting from its roots as a community haven built entirely by volunteers, all the way to its current reality as a modern battleground between fans and the boardroom. It's a fascinating look at what happens when historic architecture, deep-rooted culture, and modern administrative policy collide head-on.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here's a quick roadmap of where we're headed. First, the architecture of paradise. Second, engineering the roar. Third, the safe standing era. And finally, friction in the stands. Let's get right to it.
Section 1. The Architecture of Paradise, Building a Legend. Let's explore the deeply community-driven origins of the ground affectionately known to its supporters simply as Paradise.
You really get a sense of how organically this stadium grows straight out of its community. Back in 1892, just after the club was established, the original structure was raised in an astonishing 6 months. And the crazy part? It was built entirely by voluntary work. Literally, locals rolling up their sleeves, and yet it still held a massive 40,000 people. Fast forward a bit, by 1929, the famous stadium architect Archibald Leitch designed the main stand that you can still see today. Then we jump to 1994 for the massive Fergus McCann rebuild, and finally the modern edition of the Celtic Way in 2014.
Now let's zoom in on that 1994 rebuild, because the backstory here is actually wild. When Fergus McCann first tried to invest in the club in the early 90s, the old board flat out refused to let him inside the ground. No way, doors locked. So, undeterred, McCann and his surveyor literally walked the perimeter of the stadium from the outside, taking whatever measurements they could pull off from the street. Using just those external measurements, he designed a massive redevelopment, which ended up being funded by a super successful 1995 share issue. His vision was huge, featuring these no-camp-inspired curved stands and a really clever architectural overhang on the side of the ground bordering a cemetery.
So, before 2014, the outside of Celtic Park was, well, kind of derelict. But in just 9 months, the club completely transformed that space into the Celtic Way. This is a 150-meter avenue stretching from London Road right up to the front doors. To put that into perspective, it features 300,000 hand-laid paving bricks. Plus, there's this stunning 7.5-meter Celtic crest made of Scottish whinstone and a huge four-leaf clover meeting area. It really brought this proud, highly polished, modern edge to a very historic ground.
Section 2. Engineering the roar, the sound of the old firm. Now we're pivoting from the physical bricks and mortar to the sensory experience, looking at exactly how Celtic Park captures and amplifies emotion. Now, what's really interesting here is the sheer volume this stadium generates. It's mind-blowing. An actual acoustic assessment showed that crowd noise consistently hovers around 100 decibels for long stretches of the game. But when there's a goal celebration, it peaks at a staggering 115 decibels. I mean, for context, that is basically the equivalent of standing right next to a live rock concert or hearing a jet engine taking off. The physical structure of the bowl literally traps and weaponizes the roar of the crowd.
And all that hard acoustic data, it translates directly into raw, visceral emotion on match days, especially during the Old Firm rivalry against Rangers. When these two teams meet, the stadium becomes a true cathedral of sound. It really transcends a normal sporting event. It becomes this deeply rooted cultural phenomenon, with an almost operatic intensity that completely halts the entire city of Glasgow.
It's kind of fascinating to see how the intense cultural differences between these rival grounds play out, even just for tourists. The Celtic Park tour is a very tight 60 minutes, and it leans heavily into the legendary, emotional story of the Lisbon Lions and their European Cup triumph. Meanwhile, right across the city, the Ibrox tour runs for 90 minutes with a totally different vibe, diving deep into the Victorian architectural history of their building. Two completely different stadiums, presenting two very distinct narratives to the world.
Section 3. The Safe Standing Era. Redefining the fan experience. Let's look at how crucial safety regulations altered British stadiums forever and how Celtic adapted. To really understand the modern stadium experience, we have to look back at the devastating Hillsborough disaster in 1989, where 96 lives were tragically lost due to a stadium crush. That horrific, heartbreaking event catalyzed what's known as the Taylor Report. The immediate and permanent result of that report was the complete banning of traditional standing terraces across major British football venues. It forced grounds like Celtic Park to become strictly all-seater venues throughout the 1990s. But that traditional culture of standing shoulder to shoulder and singing, it never truly went away. Recognizing this reality, in 2016, Celtic actually pioneered a return to standing. They became the very first professional UK club to install a designated safe standing section.
They ripped out traditional seats and put in specialized rail seats that can hold up to 3,000 fans. This move was specifically engineered to safely accommodate the highly vocal, growing ultra-supporter culture, groups like the Green Brigade, basically integrating their chaotic energy safely into the modern ground.
Which brings us to Section 4, friction in the stands, the modern stalemate. Because, well, this integration hasn't been entirely smooth sailing.
And this leads us directly into a massive wave of recent fan outrage. Supporters right now are absolutely furious over a sudden, drastic shift in matchday rules, and they're all asking the exact same question. Who decided to restrict the fans without any consultation whatsoever? The stark reality of the new matchday experience becomes clear really fast. Fans are now restricted to entering through highly specific turnstiles. Once inside, they're confined to using only the toilet nearest their specific seat, and can only buy food from the closest outlet. All movement around the concourse, mingling with friends or family in other sections, strictly banned. And this is being enforced by dense waves of police and stewards. The fans are arguing that the communal joy of a football match has been reduced to an isolated, heavily suspicious environment. One source even pointed out fans feel that spending £5 at a local supermarket literally yields a better customer service experience than going to a game.
So, the absolutely crucial point here is how these restrictions tie into the club's bank account. There's massive frustration because these draconian, highly policed measures are being rolled out, while the club's board is allegedly just sitting on a massive cash reserve of £80 million. For the fans, it feels like instead of investing that cash into the squad or improving the actual stadium facilities, the money is being used to hire extra stewards just to restrict their movement.
This brings us to a total stalemate, and it's really important we look at both sides of this impartially. On one side, the fans are arguing they're being treated like criminals. They view the board as an unaccountable dictatorship that's completely lost touch with the supporters, who they see as the actual lifeblood of the club. But on the flip side, the board and the administration assert that these are absolutely necessary safety measures. They point out that they have to adhere to strict health and safety compliance laws and local license conditions. And frankly, they argue these measures are often a direct response to the pyrotechnics and boundary-pushing behaviors of the ultra groups themselves.
And right now, there's just no dialogue. The club hasn't formally sat down and spoken with groups like the Green Brigade in nearly 2 years. The tension is palpable and mounting by the week. As one source noted, there must come a breaking point at some stage in this standoff. It can't last forever.
Which leaves us with this final, provocative thought. We've seen how Celtic Park was literally built by the bare hands of its community volunteers. It was fundamentally designed to amplify their voices and give a home to their passion. But as rigid, modern regulations increasingly clash with traditional, raw fan culture, can a stadium built on such deep historic passion actually survive this growing, silent divide between the boardroom and the terraces? It's a question that strikes at the very soul of modern football. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep questioning the world around you.